One trade. One mistake. They say greed blinds the heart. But for Nyara, it did something worse. It opened the door to the spirit world, where no mother should ever go. In a quiet village lived a mother whose heart burned with envy for wealth she did not have. Her greed was so deep that she traded away her only child for a necklace of shiny beads. But the spirits were watching, and they had plans that would change her life forever. Long ago, in a small village surrounded by wide rivers and tall forests, there lived a woman named Nyara. She was a widow, for her husband had died many seasons ago, leaving her with only one treasure, her little boy, Kofi. Kofi was the kind of child who brought light wherever he went. His laughter was bright, his eyes shone like the morning sun, and though they were poor, he never complained. Every day, Kofi would run to the river to fetch water, help his mother gather firewood, and sing songs that made the neighbors smile. But Nyara was not always smiling. In her heart, a shadow had grown. She looked around the village and saw other women wearing beautiful wrappers of bright colors, gold rings on their fingers, and necklaces that caught the light. She saw them walking proudly through the market, while she wore only an old cloth, patched many times. At first, Nyara tried to hide her feelings, but envy grew like wheat inside her chest. Why must I be poor, she thought. Why must my child and I live in a mud hut when others have houses of stone? Why should I always bow my head in shame when I pass the market women? Her neighbors often told her, Nyara, you are blessed. You have Kofi, who is kind and strong. Many would give all their riches for a child like him. But their words did not satisfy her heart. The more she heard them, the more she wanted both riches and her child. She dreamed of shiny beads, glittering bangles, and treasures that would make people bow before her. She dreamed until her dreams turned into hunger. One hot afternoon, Nyara walked with Kofi to the market. The sun burned fiercely, and the dust rose under their feet. As they moved through the busy stalls, Nyara's eyes caught something strange. A man she had never seen before stood by the edge of the market. His skin was smooth like polished wood, and his robe shimmered though no wind blew. Beside him was a small chest filled with beads that sparkled like stars. Red, blue, green, and gold, they glowed as if fire lived inside them. Women gathered around, gasping with delight. The man smiled, showing teeth white as bone, and said in a voice deep and calm, shiny beads for those who know the value of beauty. Shiny beads for those willing to pay the true price. The women pulled out coins, bracelets, and even baskets of yam to trade. But each time, the man shook his head and said, no, no, no. These beads are not for silver or food. They are not for goats or cloth. They are for something greater. Nyara's heart beat faster. She could not take her eyes off the chest. The beads called to her like whispers in the wind. She pushed through the crowd and asked, Stranger, what is the price? The man turned his gaze upon her. His eyes were not like human eyes. They were deep and endless, like the night sky, and Nyara trembled. He studied her face, then looked down at Kofi, who stood by her side, holding her hand. Woman, he said slowly, I will give you more beads than you can carry. Beads that will make you richer than the chief's wives. But the price is the boy at your side. Gasps filled the air. The women around stepped back in shock. Your only son, one whispered. Who would trade her child for beads? Kofi looked up at his mother, his small hand tightening around hers. Mama, he whispered, don't listen. Nyara's heart jumped. Fear and desire battled inside her chest. She wanted to scream at the man, to tell him she was not foolish. But her eyes kept returning to the beads. They were brighter than anything she had ever seen. She imagined herself wearing them, walking into the market with every head turning toward her. That night, Nyara could not sleep. Kofi lay beside her, snoring softly, but her mind burned with visions of the beads. She tossed and turned, hearing the stranger's voice, beads that will make you richer than the chief's wives. By morning, her hunger for wealth had swallowed her love like a greedy fire. The next day, she returned to the market, dragging Kofi along though he protested. The stranger was waiting, standing in the same place, the chest of beads still glowing. The other women had kept away, whispering that he was no ordinary trader, that perhaps he was a spirit in disguise. Nyara ignored them. She stepped forward, her eyes shining with greed. "I will trade," she said. "Take the boy. Give me the beads." Kofi cried out, "Mama, please. Don't do this. I am your only son." His tears rolled down his cheeks, but Nyara hardened her heart. The man's smile widened. He opened his chest, and the beads blazed like fire. "Then it is done," he said. He reached down and placed a necklace of gold beads into Nyara's trembling hands. One after another, he gave her bracelets, anklets, strings of jewels that dazzled brighter than the sun. Then, with a motion too swift for human eyes, he placed his hand upon Kofi's shoulder. In an instant, the boy vanished like smoke, leaving only the echo of his cry. Nyara gasped but quickly hugged the beads to her chest. Though fear pricked her heart, greed was stronger. She told herself, "Now I am rich. Now no one will laugh at me again." She walked home with her treasures jingling, ignoring the horrified faces of her neighbors. They whispered behind her back, "She has sold her son to spirits. Nothing good will come of this." But Nyara did not listen. She hung the beads around her neck, wrapped her arms in bangles, and admired herself in the water's reflection. She felt powerful, beautiful, untouchable. Yet that night, when she lay in bed, the hut felt strangely empty. The silence was heavy. There was no small voice asking for a bedtime story, no laughter, no warmth beside her. She clutched her beads tightly and whispered, "This is the price. I must be strong." Outside, the wind rose, rustling the trees with an eerie sound. Somewhere in the distance, a child's cry floated through the air. Nyara shivered, pulling her wrapper tighter. She tried to close her eyes, but the darkness seemed alive, and the beads around her neck grew strangely warm, as if burning into her skin. She did not know it yet, but the spirits had already begun to weave their plans. The morning after Nyara traded her only son, the village was buzzing with whispers. People pointed as she passed by, their eyes filled with both fear and pity. Some shook their heads, others spat on the ground. "Look at her," one woman murmured. "She wears beads bought with her own child's life. She thinks wealth can replace the laughter of a son," another said. Nyara lifted her chin higher, ignoring their words. Her neck was heavy with glittering beads, her arms jingled with bangles, and her waist shone with jeweled belts. When she walked, she felt tall, proud, and important. She went to the market that day not to buy food, but to show herself. She walked slowly, letting the sun strike her treasures so that they flashed like fire. Women stared in silence. Men shook their heads. Children hid behind their mothers' wrappers. Nyara smiled, telling herself, "Let them whisper. Soon they will bow." For a while, it seemed her plan was working. People came to ask her advice on how to look beautiful. Some even asked if she could spare a bead or two. Nyara grew bold, speaking proudly, "Not everyone can own beads like mine. They are for the chosen, the worthy." But as days passed, strange things began to happen. One evening, as she prepared to eat, Nyara poured yam porridge into a wooden bowl. She set it before herself and placed the beads she wore beside her. On the mat. To her shock, the beads began to move. They clinked softly, as if alive, and then a whisper filled the hut. "Where is the boy? Where is the boy?" Nyara froze, her spoon halfway to her mouth. Her eyes darted around, but no one was there. Only the beads lay on the mat, glowing faintly in the dim firelight. She shivered, quickly wrapping the beads back around her body. "I must be tired," she told herself. "It is only my imagination." But the whispers returned the next night, and the night after. Sometimes they laughed, a high, thin sound that made her skin crawl. Sometimes they wept like children. And always they asked the same question, "Where is the boy?" Nyara tried to ignore them. She covered her ears, sang loudly, even stuffed rags in her ears to block the sound. But the voices came from inside her head, and there was no escaping them. Still, she refused to let go of her treasures. She began to guard them fiercely, refusing to leave them even for a moment. She wore them when she cooked, when she fetched water, even when she went to sleep. Her neighbors grew more fearful. She is cursed, they said. She chose beads over blood. The spirits will not forgive her. Nyara waved them off, but deep inside, fear gnawed at her. She began to see shadows where there were none. At night, she felt cold hands brush her skin. And always she heard Kofi's voice crying in the distance. One moonless night, the whispers grew louder. She was lying in her hut, clutching the beads to her chest, when the air grew heavy and the fire dimmed. A strange wind rushed through the hut though the door was closed. The beads grew hot against her skin, burning like fire. Nyara screamed and tore them off. They fell to the floor, but instead of lying still, they wriggled like snakes, slithering across the mat. Their glow filled the room with a ghostly light. From the glow, shadows began to form. Faces, thin, hollow, with empty eyes, rose like smoke. Their mouths opened, and one by one, they spoke. You traded love for gold. You traded life for glitter. But wealth bought with blood carries only sorrow. Nyara trembled, her teeth chattering. Who are you? Leave me. The shadows swirled around her, their voices rising. The boy is ours now. But your beads will not bring you peace. They will eat your heart. They will drink your tears. Until you pay the price. Then, with a sharp crack like thunder, the beads exploded into the air, scattering around the hut. When they landed, they looked dull, lifeless, nothing more than stones. Nyara gasped, falling to her knees. No. My treasures. Bring them back. I gave my son for them. The shadows hissed and faded, leaving only silence behind. From that day, Nyara's wealth began to slip away. The beads that once shone like stars grew dim. The bangles broke, the necklaces cracked, and the jeweled belts turned to dust in her hands. Still, she tried to cling to what remained. She polished the dull stones, hoping they would shine again. She wore the cracked bangles, pretending they were whole. But the people of the village only pitied her more. She thought she could buy happiness, they said. But she has bought only sorrow. Nyara's hut grew empty. She had no son to fetch water, no child's laughter to warm her heart. The silence was heavy, pressing on her ears like a curse. One night, she dreamed of Kofi. He stood at the edge of a dark forest, his face pale, his eyes filled with tears. He stretched out his hands and whispered, "Mama, come for me. Please, come for me." Nyara woke in terror, her chest aching. For the first time, guilt pierced her like a spear. She pressed her hands to her face and wept. What have I done? Spirits, what have I done? The next day, she went to the market, hoping to find the strange trader again. But he was gone. No one had seen him since the day she made her bargain. Some said he had never been a man at all, but a spirit sent to test her heart. Nyara wandered the market in despair, clutching the lifeless stones. She cried out, "Where is my son? Where is my Kofi? Take back your beads, give me back my child." The market women shook their heads. "It is too late," they told her. "The spirits do not return what has been given. You must live with your choice." But Nyara refused to believe it. That night, as she lay weeping in her empty hut, the wind rose again, carrying a faint sound, the sound of Kofi's laughter, far away, fading into the trees. She sat up, her eyes wide. "He is not gone," she whispered. "He is calling me. The spirits have him, but he still lives." Her heart raced with new determination. For the first time since her greed swallowed her, love stirred again inside her chest. Nyara swore to herself, "I will not rest. I will not eat, I will not sleep, until I find my son. If the spirits want a price, I will pay it. If they want my life, I will give it. But I must bring him back." The whispers of the beads returned that night, but this time they were different. They no longer mocked her, they seemed to guide her. They whispered of dark forests, rivers that flowed backward, and a place where the living and the dead walked side by side. Nyara listened, her heart trembling. She knew the path ahead would be dangerous. But she also knew she could not turn back. The spirits had taken her boy. And now, the spirits would face a mother's love. The night after Nyara swore to find her son, the air in the village grew heavy. The moon was pale and thin, and the trees whispered as if they knew secrets. Nyara sat in her hut, clutching the dull beads that once burned so brightly. She closed her eyes and listened. At first, there was only silence. Then, faintly, the beads began to hum. The sound was low, like a drumbeat under the earth. Then came voices, soft, far away, but clear. Follow the river that flows backward, they whispered. Cross the forest where shadows walk, they sighed. Beyond lies the place of spirits, where your child is held. Nyara's hands trembled, but she stood tall. She wrapped the beads around her neck, not for beauty, but as a guide. Show me the way, she said. Before dawn, she left her hut. The village dogs howled as she passed. Neighbors peered from their doors, shaking their heads. She goes into the night, they muttered. The spirits will eat her alive. But Nyara did not look back. Her feet carried her toward the great river that lay beyond the fields. She walked until the sun rose, then until it set again, her stomach empty, her throat dry. Still she walked. At last, she reached the river. To her shock, the water flowed not forward, but backward, climbing against the current. The sight made her shiver, for it was not natural. Yet she stepped into the water, whispering, "For my son." The river was cold, biting her skin like teeth. Strange shapes swam beneath the surface, fish with human eyes, turtles with mouths like children. They called her name in voices that made her blood run cold. Nyara. Nyara. She shut her ears and pressed forward, her feet slipping on the stones, until she reached the other side. There, the forest rose tall and dark. The trees were twisted, their branches clawing at the sky. Shadows flitted between the trunks, though no sunlight shone to make them. The forest air smelled of damp earth and smoke. Nyara's beads grew warm against her skin. The whispers returned, "Do not stop. Do not turn back. Walk straight, or you will be lost." So she walked. The deeper she went, the stranger the forest became. She saw spirits with bodies like smoke, eyes glowing red. Some watched her silently, others stretched out long arms as if to grab her. She clutched her beads and kept moving. At one point, she came to a clearing where the ground was covered in bones, tiny bones, as if of children. A chill ran through her heart, and tears welled in her eyes. "Kofi," she whispered. "Hold on. I am coming." Then, from the shadows, a voice spoke. It was smooth, heavy, like the roll of thunder. "You are brave to walk here, woman. But bravery will not save you." Nyara spun around. The strange trader stood before her, the same one who had taken her son. His robe shimmered, his eyes were deep and endless, but this time his smile was cruel. "Give him back," Nyara cried. "Return my boy." The man laughed, the sound echoing like drums. "You gave him willingly. Did you not beg for wealth? Did you not clasp the beads to your chest with joy? The bargain was sealed." Nyara fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "I was blind. I was foolish. Take back your beads. Take my life if you must. But give me my child." The spirit tilted his head, studying her. "Your life? It is worth little. But your love, that has weight. That has power. If you truly wish to see the boy again, you must face 3 trials. Fail, and you will never leave this forest alive." Nyara wiped her tears, her jaw set. "Tell me the trials. I will face them all." The spirit's smile widened. He raised his hand, and the shadows around them stirred like angry bees. "First," he said, "you must walk through the field of hunger, where food is plenty but poison hides in every grain. Second, you must cross the river of sorrow, where the faces of your regrets will rise to drown you. And last, you must enter the hall of mirrors, where your own heart will betray you. Only then will you reach the boy. Nyara's stomach turned, but she stood tall. Then lead me. The spirit stepped aside, pointing deeper into the forest. The path ahead glowed faintly, as if lit by fireflies. Nyara walked forward, her beads trembling against her neck. Soon, she came to the field of hunger. Before her stretched rows of food, ripe yams, steaming porridge, sweet plantains, roasted meat, fruits dripping with juice. The smell was rich, wrapping around her like a net. Her stomach growled painfully. She had eaten nothing since leaving the village. Her body shook with weakness. A voice whispered, "Eat, Nyara. Eat, and grow strong. Your boy will wait." She reached out a trembling hand toward a roasted yam. But just as her fingers touched it, the beads around her neck burned hot. She pulled back and saw the food change, the yam wriggled, turning into a snake. The fruits rotted into black slime. The meat grew maggots. Nyara staggered back, covering her mouth. "I will not eat," she shouted. "My hunger is nothing compared to my son's life." The field trembled, and the food vanished, leaving only bare earth. Nyara's beads cooled, and she walked on. Next came the river of sorrow. The water was black, reflecting no light. As she stepped into it, faces rose from the depths, faces of villagers she had envied, faces of neighbors she had scorned, and worst of all, Kofi's face. "Mama," he whispered, his eyes full of tears. "Why did you give me away? Did you not love me?" The river pulled at her legs, dragging her down. She fought to breathe, but the voices swirled around her, shouting her failures, her greed, her betrayal. Nyara screamed, "I was blind. I was foolish. But I love you, Kofi. I would give my soul to bring you back." The river stilled. The faces sank away, and the water cleared. Exhausted but unbroken, Nyara dragged herself to the other side. At last, she came to the Hall of Mirrors. It was not a hall of stone, but a grove of tall, shining glass. Each mirror reflected her face, but not as she was. One showed her rich and powerful, dripping with jewels, servants bowing. Another showed her as a queen, with nations kneeling before her. Another showed her younger, more beautiful, free of sorrow. The reflections called to her, their voices sweet. "Stay with us, Nyara. Be rich, be young, be worshipped. Forget the boy. Forget your pain." For a moment, her heart wavered. The images were tempting. She reached out to touch one mirror. But then she heard it, a faint sound, like a child's voice carried by the wind. "Mama." Nyara pulled back her hand. She clenched her fist and shouted, "No more lies. I want only my son. Take your riches, your beauty, your power. I choose Kofi." The mirrors shattered with a great crash, shards flying into the air like stars. When the dust cleared, the path opened before her. Nyara fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. She had passed the trials. But the journey was not over. The beads on her neck glowed bright once more, and the voices whispered, "One more step. One more choice. The spirits are waiting." And deep in the forest, far beyond her sight, Kofi's cry rose again, calling to his mother. Nyara staggered out of the Hall of Mirrors, her heart pounding like a drum. The path ahead was lit with a pale glow, as if the moon itself had come down to guide her. Her body was weak, her clothes torn, but her spirit was fierce. She whispered to herself, "One more step. One more choice. I will not fail my son." The forest grew silent as she walked. No more spirits darted through the trees. No shadows reached for her. It was as if the world itself was holding its breath. At last, she entered a wide clearing. The ground was smooth, the air still. In the center stood a circle of stones, each taller than a man, glowing faintly with strange light. Upon one stone sat the spirit trader, his robe shimmering, his eyes endless as the night sky. Around him stood other spirits, tall, thin figures made of smoke and shadow, their faces hidden. And there, in the middle of the circle, sat Kofi. His eyes were wide with fear, his small hands tied with glowing rope. When he saw his mother, he cried out, "Mama!" Nyara's heart broke at the sound. She rushed forward, but invisible hands shoved her back. The spirits hissed, their voices sharp like wind through thorns. The trader raised his hand, and the hissing stopped. "You have come far, woman," he said, his voice deep and calm. "You faced hunger and did not eat. You faced sorrow and did not drown. You faced temptation and did not fall. Few mortals have such strength. Give me my son," Nyara begged, falling to her knees. "I have done all you asked. I have passed your trials." The spirit's smile was cold. "There is one trial left, the trial of the heart. You traded your child for beads, choosing greed over love. If you want him back, you must now give something greater than you ever gave away." Nyara's body shook. "What more can I give?" The spirits whispered, their voices echoing through the clearing. "Give your soul. Give your life. Give your freedom. Only then will the boy be free." Kofi cried out, "No, Mama. Don't leave me. I want you with me." Nyara's tears fell like rain. She longed to hold her son, to keep him safe. But she knew what the spirits demanded. She raised her head high and said, "Take me. Take my soul, my breath, my blood. Only let my child live. Let him walk in the sun again." The spirits stirred, their smoky bodies swelling. The trader leaned forward, his eyes glittering. "Are you certain? If you give your soul, you will never see the boy grow. You will never hold him again. He will return to the world, but you will vanish forever." Nyara's voice trembled, but it was steady. "I have already lost him once to my greed. I will not lose him again to my fear. If my life is the price, I pay it gladly." The spirits roared, their voices rising like a storm. The circle of stones blazed with light. The trader raised his arms, and the ropes around Kofi melted away. The boy ran toward his mother, but before he could reach her, a wall of fire sprang up between them. Nyara gasped but did not step back. She pressed her hands to her chest and whispered, "Kofi, forgive me. Live well, live strong. Remember that your mother loved you, even in her foolishness." The fire roared, and the spirits closed in. The trader's voice thundered, "Then let the bargain be sealed. The child is free. The mother is ours." Nyara's beads burned hot, then burst into flames. She cried out, her body glowing as if her very soul were being pulled from her chest. The spirits reached for her, their hands like smoke and fire. But just as they touched her, something strange happened. The ground shook. The fire roared higher, then split apart. A wind rose, fierce and wild, scattering the spirits. The trader staggered, his rope flickering like dying flames. From the center of the storm came a voice, louder than thunder, deeper than the earth. "Enough." The spirits froze. The trader bowed his head. Nyara fell to the ground, gasping, her body trembling. Out of the light stepped a figure unlike the others. This spirit was vast and radiant, its form shifting like the sun and the moon together. Its eyes were bright and kind, yet filled with power. "The test is complete," the Great Spirit said. "This woman was foolish, yes. She traded love for greed. But she has faced her fault, and she has chosen sacrifice over selfishness. Her soul is not yours to take." The trader hissed, "But the bargain?" "The bargain is broken," the Great Spirit thundered. "For no spirit may claim a heart that chooses love above all things." The trader shrank back, his form crumbling like ash. The other spirits wailed and fled into the forest. Nyara looked up, her eyes wide. "Does this mean?" The Great Spirit nodded. "Your boy will live. You will live. But remember this, greed leaves scars that never fade. Carry this lesson in your heart, and teach it to your son, for wealth without love is nothing but dust." The fire vanished. Kofi ran into his mother's arms, sobbing. Nyara held him tight, her tears soaking his hair. My son, I will never let you go again." The Great Spirit's form began to fade, its voice echoing through the clearing. Go, Nyara. Return to your word. Raise your child in love, not in envy. For you have been given a second chance, and such gifts are rare. Then it was gone. The clearing grew quiet. The stones dimmed. Nyara and Kofi were alone, holding each other as the first light of dawn broke through the trees. Nyara kissed her son's forehead and whispered, "Come, Kofi. Let us go home. I have nothing but you, and that is more than enough." Hand in hand, they began the long walk back through the forest. The shadows no longer reached for them. The river flowed forward again. The air felt lighter, as if the world itself had forgiven her. But deep inside, Nyara knew the Great Spirit's words were true. Greed had left its mark on her soul, a mark that would never vanish. She would carry it always, as a reminder of the day she almost lost everything for shiny beads. Still, as she held Kofi's hand, she felt hope. And hope, she realized, was brighter than any jewel. The forest slowly gave way to open fields as Nyara and Kofi walked hand in hand. The rising sun painted the sky with colors of fire and gold, and birds sang as if to welcome them back from the world of shadows. Kofi clung tightly to his mother's hand, afraid to let go. His small voice trembled as he asked, "Mama, will the spirits come for me again?" Nyara bent down, brushing his cheek with her hand. "No, my child," she whispered. "The spirits have no claim over you now. You are mine, and I am yours. We will never be parted again." But deep inside, Nyara felt the weight of the scar left on her heart. She knew the spirits would not chase them anymore, but she also knew the memory of her greed would never leave her. By the time they reached the village, the people were already gathered. News of Nyara's journey had spread like wildfire. The villagers gasped as they saw Kofi running beside his mother, alive and whole. "She brought him back," someone cried. "It is a miracle," another whispered. The elders stepped forward, their eyes sharp with questions. The oldest among them, a man with hair white as cotton, lifted his staff and spoke. "Nyara," he said, his voice heavy, "you walked into the forest of spirits, where no mortal returns. You sold your child for beads, yet here he stands beside you. Tell us, what trick is this? What power saved you?" Nyara bowed her head, ashamed. Her beads, now nothing but dull stones, hung around her neck like a chain. She pulled them off and dropped them into the dust at the elder's feet. "There is no trick," she said softly. "Only truth. I was foolish and greedy. I traded my son for shiny beads, thinking wealth would fill the emptiness in my heart. But those beads were cursed, and they burned me with whispers and sorrow. The spirits took Kofi, and I thought I had lost him forever. But I went after him. I faced hunger, sorrow, and temptation. I begged the spirits to take my life instead of his. At last, a great spirit took pity on me and broke the bargain. It returned my child, but warned me never to forget. I stand before you today, not as a rich woman, but as a mother who has learned the cost of greed." The villagers were silent. Some shook their heads, others wiped tears from their eyes. At last, the elder raised his staff again. "Your sin was great, Nyara, but your courage was greater. The spirits themselves have judged you, and they have shown mercy. Let us learn from your story, that love is worth more than jewels, and greed is a fire that consumes all it touches." The people murmured in agreement. Women gathered their children close. Men nodded thoughtfully. Even the children, who had once feared Nyara, now gazed at her with wide eyes. But not all hearts were soft. One woman, who had envied Nyara's beauty when she wore the beads, sneered. "So the spirits spared you. But the mark of your greed will never fade. We will never forget what you did." Nyara lowered her head. "You are right. The mark is mine to carry. I do not ask for your forgiveness. I ask only for the chance to raise my son in love and humility." The elder stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You will raise him, Nyara. And every time you look at him, you will remember both your sin and your redemption. That is punishment enough, and lesson enough." That night, Nyara and Kofi returned to their hut. It was small, with no jewels or riches, only mats and clay pots. But as Kofi curled up beside her, Nyara felt warmth spread through her chest. She whispered, "We have little, my son, but we have each other. That is treasure enough." Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Nyara worked hard in the fields, carrying yams on her head, grinding grain, and weaving mats to sell in the market. She no longer looked with envy at her neighbor's clothes or gold. Instead, she poured her heart into raising Kofi. Kofi grew strong and wise. He listened carefully to his mother's words, for he knew she had walked through darkness and returned. When other children boasted of riches or envied shiny things, Kofi would shake his head and say, "Beads fade. Food rots. Gold can be stolen. But love stays." And when the children asked why he spoke so, he would tell them the story of how his mother had lost him to the spirits but fought to bring him back. As the years passed, Nyara grew older, her hair turning silver. She never again wore beads or bangles. She dressed simply, carrying herself with humility. Yet, strangely, people began to honor her more than before. They came to her for advice, for blessings, for wisdom. For they knew she carried a lesson that could not be bought, that true wealth is not in beads or gold, but in the love between a mother and her child. Still, when Nyara was alone at night, she sometimes heard faint whispers. Not the cruel laughter of cursed beads, but gentle reminders, "Do not forget. Greed leaves scars." She would clutch Kofi's hand as he slept beside her, and she would whisper back, "I have not forgotten. I will never forget." One evening, many years later, when Kofi was nearly a man, he asked her, "Mama, do you ever regret what happened?" Nyara looked into his eyes, her heart heavy but calm. "Yes, my son. I regret the moment I chose beads over you. That wound will never leave me. But I do not regret the lesson it gave us. For through my failure, I learned what matters most. And through my journey, I found a strength I never knew I had." Kofi took her hand and smiled. "Then I will carry that lesson too. I will live not for wealth, but for love. And I will teach my children the same." Nyara's eyes filled with tears, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of peace. The village would always remember her as the woman who once sold her son for shiny beads. But they would also remember her as the mother who walked into the world of spirits and returned with her child, her heart scarred but stronger. And so the tale of Nyara and Kofi was told for generations. Parents whispered it to their children by firelight. Elders recited it in the moonlit evenings. And always it ended with the same words. Riches can be stolen. Beads can turn to dust. But love, once lost, is the hardest treasure to win back. Guard it well, for it is the only jewel that shines forever. The spirits may have taught Nyara her lesson, but their whispers still wander through the wind. What other secrets lie hidden in the heart of the motherland? Like, share, subscribe, and find out in the next tale, where the ancestors speak again.